Ladies and gentlemen, for decades, the world looked at India through a narrow lens, seeing it as a developing country filled with potential, but not quite ready to lead. Analysts debated its future, investors hesitated, and global powers underestimated its momentum. But while they watched and waited, India moved quietly, strategically, faithfully. Today, the phrase India Global Rise is no longer a prediction. It is a present reality. The world woke up too late. Because by the time they noticed, India had already taken over. India's global rise is not the product of one moment, one election, or one policy. It is the culmination of centuries of spiritual depth, resilience in the face of adversity, and an unshakable identity grounded in both ancient wisdom and modern ambition. What we are witnessing now is not just a surge in GDP or a new tech hub emerging. It's a civilizational comeback. A return to form for a nation that once led in science, spirituality, mathematics, medicine, trade, and philosophy. What makes India's rise different from other global powers is that it is not built on conquest, colonization, or fear. It is built on contribution, offering talent to the tech world, peacekeeping to the global community, culture to the soul of humanity. India doesn't need to shout to be seen anymore. It simply asterisk is asterisk. It shows up in Silicon Valley, in the United Nations, in international space missions, in vaccine development, in climate talks, in every arena where leadership is defined by innovation, vision, and service. And yet, the most powerful part of India's rise is not what it is doing externally, it's what is shifting internally. This generation of Indians carries a different fire, no longer content with being called the sleeping giant. They have awakened with a hunger to reclaim the narrative. Entrepreneurs are building billion-dollar companies from small towns. Scientists are reaching for the stars, literally. Women are leading across every sector, and faith remains at the center. There is a bold confidence that says, we're not waiting for permission, we're stepping into purpose. Speak the word, Lord. Isn't just a personal prayer, it's a national anthem. Because India's rise is not just about power, it's about divine timing. While the rest of the world scrambled through chaos, India stood its ground. It healed through faith, it grew through patience, and it rose through vision. The word was spoken over this land long ago, of greatness, of purpose, of destiny, and now that word is becoming visible to the world. The irony is that many global leaders are only now starting to acknowledge this shift. They're waking up to India's strategic importance, to its booming digital economy, to its growing military capabilities, to its ability to shape global culture through cinema, philosophy, and innovation. But the truth is, they're late, because this rise didn't start last year. It's been decades in the making, fueled by a billion quiet prayers, a billion small sacrifices, a billion moments of resilience. So yes, the world woke up too late. While they were distracted, India was focused. While they doubted, India believed. While they delayed, India delivered. And now it's here. This is more than a moment, it's a movement. A faith-driven, people-powered transformation that's not just reshaping a nation but realigning the world. India's global rise is proof that power does not belong only to those who speak the loudest, but to those who walk in purpose, stay the course, and never stop believing. Because when God speaks a word, no amount of delay can stop its fulfillment. India is not rising. It has risen asterisk. For years, the idea of India as a superpower was treated as a distant possibility, something that might happen in the vague, far-off future. But now, in 2025, it's no longer a theory. It's a truth the world is waking up to, perhaps too late. The phrase India Superpower 2025 is no longer a goal, it's a declaration. While major powers were distracted by internal chaos, economic slowdowns, and leadership crises, India moved forward with clarity, resilience, and purpose. And today, it stands not in the shadow of any global force, but in the light of its own rise. India's ascent to superpower status wasn't sudden. It was strategic. It came from the quiet, disciplined work of over 1 billion people who carried a vision in their hearts. even when the world didn't see it yet. From the farmer in Punjab to the coder in Bangalore, from the teacher in Calcutta to the soldier at the border, every individual contributed to this transformation. They didn't wait for the world's validation. They operated in faith, and that's where real power comes from. The world often associates superpower status with military might or economic dominance, and yes, India has shown remarkable strength in both. Its economy is now one of the fastest growing in the world, its space program has become a symbol of innovation and grit, and its defense capabilities have advanced significantly. But what truly makes India a superpower in 2025 is not just its external accomplishments, it's the internal awakening. It's the spiritual and cultural authority that has been reignited. It's the return to identity, to values, to a God given purpose that cannot be ignored. India did not become a superpower by accident. It was forged in fire. Through colonization, partition, poverty, and political turmoil, the soul of this nation was tested, but never broken. It was prayer that sustained it, faith that guided it, and purpose that drove it. Speak the word, Lord, is more than a personal cry. It's the voice of a nation that believed in the promise of something greater, a people that trusted divine timing over global approval, and now the nations that once doubted are watching with awe. They see India leading not just in tech and trade, but in values, vision, and spiritual insight. They see a nation that knows where it came from and where it's going. While others struggle with identity crises, India is walking in its purpose. That's real superpower status. That's unstoppable momentum, and let's not forget, India's rise is inclusive, it's diverse, it is women rising in leadership, youth driving innovation, and ancient wisdom guiding modern progress. It's a land where the sacred and the scientific walk hand in hand, where mantras meet microchips, where tradition fuels transformation. It is a superpower with soul. The world woke up too late. While others were focused on maintaining old systems of control, India was building something new. Quietly, boldly, faithfully, and now it stands as a pillar of hope in a chaotic world. But here's the real takeaway. India's story is not just for India, it's for every underdog, every individual who's ever been told you're not ready or you're not enough. Because India is living proof that when you walk in faith, when you trust divine timing, when you speak the word and keep moving asterisk asterisk, you rise. Asterisk asterisk, India's Superpower 2025 is more than a headline. It's a prophecy fulfilled. It's the rise of a nation that never stopped believing, and now it's leading. Not from pride, but from purpose. Not from conquest, but from conviction. So yes, the world woke up too late, but for those who are watching now, take note. This is what happens when a nation leans on faith, stays the course, and refuses to bow to fear. India has already taken over not with noise, but with light, not with force, but with faith. For decades, global leadership was dominated by a handful of Western powers. They shaped the rules, dictated the pace, and controlled the narratives, but while they were busy looking at each other, one nation quietly rose, building, believing, and becoming. That nation is India. And now, as the world finally begins to pay attention, the truth is undeniable. India has taken over the world stage. This wasn't a sudden move. It was decades in the making. While global media painted a narrow picture of poverty and politics, India was busy laying the groundwork for something far greater. It invested in technology, empowered its youth, opened its economy, and leaned into its spiritual roots. And today, that silent transformation has exploded into global visibility. India is no longer waiting to be invited to the table. It is building its own, and the world wants a seat. India takes over the world stage not with noise or aggression, but with confidence and clarity. It doesn't demand respect, it commands it, through action, resilience, and results. Its influence now touches every sector: economy, defense, technology, healthcare, culture, and diplomacy. Whether it's leading digital payments, exporting software talent, launching successful space missions, or taking a firm stand at global forums, India's voice now carries weight. The rise was not without struggle. India faced colonization, division, and decades of developmental challenges, but what makes this journey extraordinary is that it never lost its soul in the process. Instead of mimicking Western models, India fused tradition with innovation. It held fast to its spiritual foundations, its prayer, its patience, its belief in divine timing. While others placed all their hope in politics or economics, India turned to something higher, and that's where the real power came from. Speak the word, Lord. That cry, echoed in the hearts of 1 billion people, became the foundation of a miracle, because the rise of India is not just economic or political, it's prophetic. A nation that once bowed under foreign rule now stands as a light in the chaos, a stabilizing force, a moral voice, a reminder that greatness does not come only from military might, but from vision, values, and the strength to stand alone. As the world reels from crisis after crisis, economic crashes, moral confusion, leadership failures, India steps forward not as a savior but as a steady presence. It's not perfect, no nation is, but it has something the world is starving for: purpose. And that's why the world is finally paying attention. That's why global corporations are investing, world leaders are listening, and the youth of other nations are looking east for inspiration. India's leadership doesn't come from dominance, it comes from depth. From the wisdom of the Vedas to the resolve of its people, India's rise is a spiritual movement as much as a strategic one. The world is waking up, but too late, because India didn't wait for approval. It didn't wait for validation, it simply moved forward in faith, and that's the message for every soul watching. You don't need the world to recognize you before you rise. You don't need applause before you act. You just need to believe, stay the course, and keep speaking the word over your life. Just like India, your moment will come, and when it does, you won't need to shout. Your presence will speak for itself. India has taken over the world stage, not just by what it's built, but by who it has become, a nation of light, of strength, of destiny, and now the world must catch up, because India didn't wait. It rose. India's geopolitical power shift has been one of the most silent yet profound transformations of the 21st century. While major global powers were caught in internal divisions and economic stagnation, India was quietly realigning its position on the world map, not just as a participant in global affairs, but as a decisive leader. Today, as the world rubs its eyes and realizes the magnitude of what has unfolded, it's clear, India has already taken over in more ways than one. This is not just about military strength or economic size. It's about strategic influence, spiritual depth, cultural relevance, and long-term resilience. For years, global power was seen through the lens of the West. Decisions made in Washington, London, or Brussels echoed across continents, but slowly India began to shift that axis, not by demanding attention, but by commanding it through action. It invested in long-term infrastructure, transformed its digital economy, strengthened its defense, and, perhaps most importantly, built strong alliances across East and West without compromising its sovereignty. While other nations depended on military interventions or economic coercion, India employed diplomacy rooted in dignity, cultural intelligence, and moral clarity. One of the clearest signs of this power shift was India's emergence as a bridge between polarized global blocs. In times when U.S.-China tensions dominated headlines, India became the third voice, a voice that didn't echo others but created its own rhythm. Whether it was mediating during international conflicts, championing South-South cooperation, or playing a key role in global forums like the G20, BRICS, and the United Nations, India proved that its presence was not symbolic, it was strategic. The world was used to viewing India as a developing economy, but now it is forced to respect it as a global agenda setter. India's geopolitical rise is also rooted in its spiritual and civilizational depth. Unlike nations that rose and fell through cycles of colonization and collapse, India carries thousands of years of philosophical heritage, moral leadership, and cultural resilience. This foundation has allowed it to approach international relations not with arrogance, but with purpose. It doesn't seek domination, it seeks dharma balance, justice, and service. In a time when global leadership is often marked by ego, India brings humility, and that humility, combined with strength, is deeply compelling. The digital revolution further amplified India's power. With the world's largest youth population connected through technology, India became a hub of innovation and entrepreneurship. From fintech to space exploration, from renewable energy to AI, India is setting trends rather than following them. Global investors and political leaders can no longer afford to ignore this shift. They must respond to it, negotiate with it, and adapt to it. This change was not an accident. It was rooted in prayer, in perseverance, and in prophecy. As the theme says, the world woke up too late. While others scoffed, India believed. While others doubted, India declared. Speak the word, Lord, was not just an act of devotion. It was an invocation of destiny. And that word is now manifesting in every aspect of the nation's rise. But make no mistake, this isn't just a political story. It's a spiritual lesson. The world's awakening to India's geopolitical power shift is a reminder to every individual and nation that you don't need the world's approval to walk in your purpose. You just need to believe, prepare, and stay aligned with divine timing. India didn't rise because it was given permission. It rose because it was called asterisk, and now the world must adjust to a new reality. India has already taken over not with violence, but with vision, not through fear, but through faith. The shift is here, and it's irreversible. There was a time when India's voice was seen as peripheral in global affairs, an afterthought in the rooms where the future was being written. But while the world busied itself with power games, chasing headlines, and clinging to old systems, India focused on growth, quietly, steadily, unapologetically. And now, as the world wakes up, perhaps too late, it's clear India's global influence is not just growing, it's already reshaping the entire balance of power. This influence didn't appear overnight. It was cultivated through resilience, fueled by vision, and rooted in something deeper than politics or economics. It was born of faith, a national belief that destiny could not be delayed forever. India was never asleep. It was preparing, it was praying, it was positioning itself for a time such as this. India's influence is growing because it has learned to lead from its core, its values. In a world desperate for stability, India offers spiritual strength. In a time of political chaos, it brings cultural clarity. In the age of digital revolution, India stands not just as a consumer, but as a creator. This is not just economic rise, it is a civilizational awakening. Consider the global digital economy. Today, India is one of the largest markets and talent pools for tech innovation. Its engineers and developers are building the future of AI, space exploration, and fintech. Companies across the globe, from Silicon Valley to Singapore, rely on Indian innovation. But more than technology, India is exporting something far more powerful: mindset, discipline, determination, purpose. This global influence is deeply spiritual. Speak the word, Lord. Those 5 words are not a whisper in India's journey. They are a declaration. They symbolize a nation that walks by faith, not by sight. India didn't rise because it followed global models. It rose because it followed its calling. It honored its ancient wisdom, trusted divine timing, and chose to rise not through conquest, but through contribution. Politically, India's influence is undeniable. It is a key voice in international forums like the G20, the United Nations, BRICS, and the Quad. Its leaders are no longer asking for a seat at the table. They are shaping the agenda. Whether it's climate policy, peace talks, or trade agreements, India is not just presented as pivotal. Culturally, India's soft power is everywhere. Bollywood films, yoga, Ayurveda, classical music, and spiritual teachings have reached every corner of the globe. But this isn't just about entertainment or tradition, it's about resonance. The world is drawn to India because it offers something many have lost: rootedness. In a culture drowning in confusion, India brings alignment. India's global influence is also expanding through its humanitarian leadership. It sent vaccines to dozens of countries during the pandemic. It contributes peacekeepers to the UN. It uplifts the global south with dignity and collaboration, not charity. This is influence without intimidation, power without pride. The world is just now waking up to this reality, but India has already moved. While other nations debated, India acted. While others hesitated, India healed. While others searched for identity, India stood in its truth. And this is the lesson for every listener, every dreamer, every nation that's been underestimated. You don't need the world to recognize you before you rise. You need faith, you need fire, and you need to keep moving in obedience even when no one is watching. That's what India did, and now the world is watching because it has no choice. India's global influence is growing because it refused to shrink back. It spoke the word, it held the vision, it trusted the process, and now it leads not with dominance, but with destiny. For decades, global power was defined by the dominance of the West. The United States, the United Kingdom, and their allies set the rules: military, economic, and even cultural. They held the reins of global institutions, media narratives, trade routes, and political influence. But while the world was focused on these established powers, something incredible was happening in the East. India, once dismissed as developing, was quietly stepping into its ancient identity, building modern capabilities, and preparing to shift the very center of global gravity. And now the world is waking up too late. Because India has already taken over not with fanfare, but with faith, focus, and fierce resilience. India vs. Western dominance is not a battle in the traditional sense. It's not about conquering through weapons or enforcing ideologies. It's about presence. It's about proving that a nation doesn't need to look like the West to lead the world. India is not seeking to replace the West. It's rising to remind the world that power can come from peace, that leadership can come from legacy, and that faith is not weakness. It's strength in motion. For centuries, Western nations controlled the narrative. They were the authors of history textbooks, the heads of global banks, the influencers of culture through Hollywood, and the voices behind international diplomacy. But while these institutions were building empires, India was building something deeper: character. While Western economies moved through cycles of boom and bust, India held steady, driven by spiritual endurance and cultural cohesion. Today, India stands at the forefront of technology, medicine, space exploration, and digital infrastructure. It is the fifth largest economy, with projections that it will rise to third place within a decade. But beyond numbers, it's India's approach that is shifting paradigms. It leads without colonizing. It innovates without erasing its past. It competes fiercely but with dignity. In a world exhausted by arrogance, India's humility is its greatest power. Western dominance often relied on telling the rest of the world how to think, how to govern, how to succeed. But India's rise is rooted in a different philosophy: be the example, not the enforcer. It is showing the world what's possible when a country embraces its own values rather than abandoning them for foreign templates. It's a living demonstration that tradition and technology can walk side by side, that the wisdom of the Vedas can coexist with the precision of artificial intelligence. This rise also exposes the spiritual gap left by Western dominance. As many Western nations drift further into moral ambiguity and cultural confusion, India offers clarity, a civilizational anchor. It has shown that spiritual consciousness and scientific progress are not mutually exclusive, that a nation grounded in "speak the word, Lord" can build satellites, skyscrapers, and software that lead the world. This divine alignment is not accidental, it is intentional. India is not just building a superpower, it is walking in prophecy. As the world realizes this, global institutions are shifting, businesses are pivoting to India, diplomats are seeking alliances, global South nations are looking to India not just as a friend, but as a leader. The West, once the compass of global direction, is now recalibrating to accommodate the Indian model of balanced growth. Faithful, futuristic, and fearless. The message is clear. The world woke up too late. Western dominance is no longer the default. India didn't wait to be invited into power. It simply prepared, prayed, and persisted, and now it has arrived. Not in rebellion, but in revelation. This is not just a change in leadership. It is a change in energy, a change in the moral and spiritual frequency of the planet. India vs. Western dominance is not a war, it's a witness, a testimony that power does not only belong to those who conquered the past, but to those who are building the future, with grace, with grit, and with God. India has already taken over, and the world finally is opening its eyes. For years, the phrase New World Order evoked images of Western alliances, military coalitions, and economic blueprints designed in boardrooms far from the developing world. The center of global power was fixed in places like Washington, D.C., London, and Brussels, but something monumental has shifted, so silently that most of the world missed it. Now they're waking up, and they're waking up too late. Because India has already taken its seat, not at someone else's table, but at the one it built for itself. The new world order is here, and India is no longer the observer, it is the architect. India's emergence is not just about GDP numbers, military capabilities, or population statistics. It's about influence, the kind that transforms international systems. Where once India was sidelined as the largest democracy with potential, it is now seen as the decisive power in multipolar diplomacy. In a world fragmented by geopolitical rivalry and post-pandemic uncertainty, India has quietly become the balancing force. And unlike the superpowers of old, it leads with a different set of tools: spiritual strength, cultural pride, digital innovation, and unshakable faith in its destiny. In the 20th century, the world followed two dominant ideologies: capitalist democracy led by the West and communist control led by the East. But the 21st century New World Order is being shaped by India's hybrid model. A democracy rooted in ancient civilization, a capitalist economy infused with spiritual values, and a tech-savvy generation that still bows to its elders. While the West argued over identity politics and ideological extremes, India embraced unity in diversity, tradition alongside transformation. India didn't just show up one day in the global arena. It earned its place by surviving, striving, and sacrificing. It withstood centuries of colonization. It navigated brutal partitions and border conflicts. It fought poverty, corruption, and systemic inequality. But most of all, it kept believing. While the rest of the world debated whether India could rise, India was speaking a different word. Speak the word, Lord, not a slogan, but a declaration of divine alignment. It's this deep spiritual identity that makes India's rise so powerful and so different. What does India's role in the New World Order look like? It looks like being the voice of the global South, standing firm when others bow to pressure. It looks like mediating peace talks between warring nations while maintaining strategic neutrality. It looks like leading digital payment revolutions while feeding hundreds of millions during a global pandemic. It looks like launching satellites and moon missions while quoting ancient scriptures and teaching yoga to the world. The New World Order is not about domination. It's about balance, and India represents that balance between tradition and innovation, between growth and gratitude, between ambition and alignment. The old power structures were top, heavy, they were about control. The new world, the one India is shaping, is about collaboration, culture, and calling. This is what terrifies those who thought power could only come from military might or economic leverage. India has shown that real power flows from the spirit, from the collective will of a people who believed they were born for more. The world woke up too late to see it forming. Now they're playing catch up. But India doesn't need to catch up to anyone. It's already running its own race. For the individual watching this isn't just about geopolitics. It's about asterisk you asterisk. India's rise is proof that no one's destiny can be denied forever, not a nation, not a person. When you move in purpose, when you walk in obedience, when you believe in what God has spoken over your life, there will come a day when the world will finally see what you always knew deep down. You were made to lead. The new world order has arrived, and it sounds like mantras. It looks like resilience. It moves with rhythm and reason, and at its heart beats the soul of India. While the world was fixated on flashy headlines, political drama, and economic turbulence, something extraordinary was unfolding quietly in the East. It didn't announce itself with fireworks or declarations. It didn't march through capitals or broadcast its rise through global media. Instead, it grew silently, like the dawn breaking behind mountains, steady and certain. This is the India silent revolution, and by the time the world looked up to notice, India had already taken over not through conquest, but through conviction. This revolution wasn't sparked by one leader or one movement. It was born from the collective will of over 1 billion people who refused to be defined by their past. India, a country long viewed through the lens of colonial trauma and economic struggle, began to write a new narrative. One of confidence, one of purpose, one that didn't need the world's approval to bloom. It began in the villages where digital payments reached farmers who once worked only with cash, where women, once silenced, found their voice through education and self-help groups, where the language of dreams began to shift from survival to significance. The government's focus on rural development, electrification, sanitation, and direct benefit transfers created a ripple effect that changed lives without ever making a sound on the international stage. But it was happening, one family, one community, one state at a time. Then came the technological wave. India, once considered a back office for the world, began producing some of the most influential CEO entrepreneurs and engineers across the globe. Silicon Valley's boardrooms spoke with Indian accents, and global innovation pipelines began depending on Indian brains. But the real revolution wasn't just in exporting talent, it was in building at home. India became the leader in digital identity systems through Aadhaar, revolutionized banking access through Jan Dhyan Yojana, and became a global leader in UPI-based digital payments. Quietly, without anyone noticing, India created a model of tech, enabled inclusion the world now wants to replicate. Education, once a privilege, became the cornerstone of this silent transformation. Millions of first-generation learners, many from remote regions, entered universities and technical institutions. India's hunger for knowledge became unstoppable. And with that came a rise in confidence. No longer was the Indian student seeking validation from foreign degrees alone. They began innovating, launching startups, solving real-world problems from healthcare to agriculture, with a boldness that didn't need applause. Militarily, India did not roar it prepared, it modernized. It strengthened its capabilities while maintaining strategic restraint. It formed key partnerships without compromising sovereignty. From defense manufacturing to cyber preparedness, the country transformed its security approach while staying committed to peace. Culturally, India never tried to dominate global trends. Instead, it let the world come to it. Yoga, Ayurveda, classical music, philosophy, India's soft power flowed like a river, shaping minds and healing bodies across continents. Bollywood films spoke the language of emotion, and Indian festivals lit up skylines far beyond the subcontinent. It wasn't colonizing minds, it was expanding hearts. But the true force behind this silent revolution is spiritual. It is deeply rooted in a timeless belief that purpose is greater than power, that dharma righteous duty, will always outlast domination. While the world argued over ideologies and identities, India stood in its truth, anchored in prayer, service, and gratitude. Speak the word, Lord, was not just an invocation for divine healing. It was India's soul speaking its destiny into existence. A destiny not to conquer, but to uplift. Today, as the world begins to notice what India has become, they're realizing it's not catching up. It's leading. This revolution didn't ask for permission. It didn't seek validation. It simply believed and became asterisk. And that's why the world woke up too late. Because revolutions that are loud demand attention, but revolutions that are silent, they demand respect. India's silent revolution is not just history, it is prophecy fulfilled. And it has already taken over.